Hello there. So, let me first say that I have to apologise for the late video. I know this trailer came out a few days ago, things just got a bit crazy at home, but things have now calmed down and we can get back to normal. So, with regards to Star Wars Episode 9, obviously anyone who's a Star Wars fan knows that the first trailer, or the teaser trailer, for the film has come out, and a lot of people are going crazy about it. For me, not so much. I think, and this really is a shame to say, that the excitement I've got for Star Wars films, at least new Star Wars films, at this moment in time, has been quite dampened down. Um, the same excitement I used to have for a new film, like say when I was a kid, is just not there anymore. Not that I would say I'll never come back, but at this moment in time, it's just, I don't know. I feel like the magic is kind of gone. But that's just my personal feeling about that. So I have to say, I wasn't really sitting by the computer screen, just waiting second by second for this trailer to drop. As soon as I found out it dropped, I watched it. And I haven't seen it a million times, like some hardcore fans have seen it. I've only seen it maybe 2 or 3 times. So, what do I think about the trailer itself? Well, I'd say overall, the trailer feels very much like damage control. The shot when you have Rey running away from who I'm assuming is Kylo Ren's TIE fighter, it was fine. I don't know. With regards to when I say damage control, put it this way though, one of the first things I noticed was Kylo Ren's mask being put back together. That I did like, but it's blatantly obvious why they're doing it, because as part of the backlash with regards to The Last Jedi, that's one thing a lot of people didn't like, was the fact that Kylo Ren smashed up his mask. And so if they're putting that back together, it feels like it's a bit of damage control, which to some extent is kind of needed, really. And of course you got Mark Hamill narrating the trailer. And we knew a long time ago that Luke Skywalker was going to be back in this film in some form, regardless if he's a Force ghost or if he's somehow resurrected. Personally, I think he's going to be a Force ghost. I don't know, that's how I feel. But with regards to that line he said at the end, that no one is ever truly gone, that line leaves things very, very much open. With regards to is Luke, well, we know that Luke Skywalker is going to be back in some fashion. So with regards to Luke, the point is kind of obvious. And then of course it leaves open the possibility of Snoke, because that's another thing that people didn't like about The Last Jedi, is that Snoke was killed off rather unceremoniously. So is he being brought back? But the most obvious thing that's got everyone talking about the film is that laugh at the end of the trailer, Palpatine. Now, I have mixed feelings on the Emperor coming back. It was definitely a surprise. It really was a surprise for me. But I have to admit, this kind of goes back to my point when I said this trailer feels very much like damage control. Because when you had the backlash against The Last Jedi causing Solo, the Solo movie, to flop, we knew from the pre-production of Episode 9 that there was a lot of attention being put into this film, where like it felt like we need to make this film to be as appealing to as many of the fans as possible, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but we all know that the only reason why they're doing this is because The Last Jedi was so polarizing, for very good reason. So, the idea of Palpatine coming back, I'm not against the idea. Now, there was an article recently saying that Disney had always planned, Lucasfilm had always, same people, they'd always planned to bring Palpatine back in the sequel trilogy. I doubt that. I doubt that very much. I think having Palpatine return, it could fix a lot of the resentment that fans, well, some fans, have towards the new films. But how could it work? Well, I don't believe for a second that the Emperor somehow survived being tossed down the second Death Star. I just don't believe that for a second. But it's not unheard of Palpatine returning because, well, we know from the Legends material he did come back as a clone, as the reborn Emperor. I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think they're going to clone him. I don't know. What I think will happen... Now, bear with me for a second. Think back to The Last Jedi. I know it's very distressing, but bear with me. Think back to that scene, that flashback scene in The Last Jedi, where Luke has got his lightsaber over his head, and he's going to, he's thinking about killing his nephew because he senses darkness within him. Now, that scene was another reason why people really didn't like The Last Jedi, is because it was so out of character. Like, why would Luke Skywalker, of all people, the man who saved his father, one of the most evil men in the galaxy, and brought him back to the light side, why would he, of all people, want to kill his nephew? Well, think of it this way. I had an idea, and the only way I could see that scene, that terrible scene in The Last Jedi, making any kind of sense whatsoever, would be if he sensed Palpatine in Ben Solo. Think about it. Palpatine somehow possessing Ben Solo, or at least unconsciously. That would be an interesting twist. It's like Ben Solo, he never really knows that Palpatine's within him. And so he's constantly struggling against Palpatine. Because we saw in The Force Awakens some flashes of the light side within Kylo Ren. So could it be that he's actually got Palpatine within him? That's an interesting way to go about it, because put it this way, what would possess Luke Skywalker to even think about killing his own nephew in his sleep? The idea that he senses Palpatine, one of the greatest Sith Lords of all time, inhabiting his nephew. And then for a split second he feels, no, I can't let Palpatine come back. I need to kill him now before he causes any damage. That, for me, would make some sense of that scene in The Last Jedi. Will they do it? I doubt it. I doubt it very much. I don't think they'll do it that way. I think what will happen is that, because in the trailer shot you saw the ruins of the second Death Star on Endor, and so since Palpatine died on the second Death Star, you'll probably see his ghost appear. But with regards to possession, I mean, it's not unheard of Sith Lords possessing individuals. We saw that quite a few times in Legends. I haven't read the comics personally, but I think in the Darth Vader comics, there's in the new canon Darth Vader comics, there's a Sith Lord that possesses an Imperial officer. But don't quote me on that. So there's some interesting ideas, but I highly doubt we're going to find out Palpatine somehow survived, like he grabbed onto a ledge as he was being tossed down. I highly doubt that. So does this make things intriguing for episode 9? Put it this way, I'm curious. I'm curious to see what will happen. I'll definitely go see it. But it's like I said, the excitement just isn't really there. But then again, this is only a teaser trailer, so maybe the next trailer will get me more excited. And like I said, I am curious to see what happens. It's just, I think The Last Jedi, and I don't mean to keep harping on about this, but The Last Jedi left such a bad taste in everyone's mouth. The Rise of Skywalker, episode 9, is going to have to be really good to make people forget about The Last Jedi. But I also want to talk about Star Wars Celebration. Now, Star Wars Celebration was interesting because I liked what we saw with regards to the video games. Was it Jedi Fallen Order, something like that? We only saw a cinematic. We didn't see any gameplay footage. I'm curious about that game, but I don't know. I do kind of think that they need to kind of leave the Empire era a little bit. They need to sort of focus on the story somewhere else in a different timeline, because, well, the story is that you're a Jedi on the run from the Empire. It's like, well, it's hardly anything new, really, is it? But cinematics wise, the game looks really good. It can remind me a lot of the Force Awakens, cinematics wise, anyway. But this is why I'm kind of holding off a lot of judgment on it until we actually see some gameplay footage. Of course, you got the new Clone Wars trailer for season 7. Now, the Clone Wars as an arc, I've never really been a fan of, but I did like the TV show, and I was sorry to see that it got cancelled initially. And so I'm glad that Disney is coming back to that. And I must admit, though, Disney bringing back the Clone Wars, that did feel very much like damage control as well. Like, you know, they really had to do something where they had to give the fans what they wanted. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But the main thing I'd like to talk about is The Mandalorian. Now, they've got a great cast for that TV show. In fact, I may even buy into Disney's subscription service just to watch The Mandalorian, because having Gus Fring from from Breaking Bad as part of the Empire, I think he was part of the Empire. You couldn't really see the trailer very well, but yeah, that was interesting, and I like the look of it. I'm interested in the character of the Mandalorian, and considering that Disney has announced that they're kind of putting the brakes on Star Wars films a little bit. You know, so next in 2020 we're not going to see another Star Wars film, but The Mandalorian will be heavily featured. So I'm interested. I'm interested to see what we get there. With regards to what was reported about Knights of the Old Republic, they say that, well, Kathleen Kennedy has said that there is something in production with regards to Knights of the Old Republic. Now, this is something that a lot of Star Wars fans have wanted for a long time. And I think that if they do actually do this, and they do it properly, this really could revitalize Star Wars. Because I don't buy into the idea that part of the reason Solo failed was because you had two films just months apart from each other. No, they don't want to admit that The Last Jedi annoyed a lot of people, and Solo unfortunately got punished for it. I've said before, I don't think Solo deserved what it got. I thought it was it was a fine film. You know, it was a perfectly good film. Nothing special about it, but it was a perfectly good film. But the only reason why it suffered really was because of politics, and that's unfortunate. So I'm hoping that once things get sort of settled down a bit, I think post episode 9, it would not surprise me that at some point we do see multiple Star Wars films every year. I think they will try it again. And I noticed that there's not been a lot of talk about Rian Johnson's trilogy. It was mentioned, but it wasn't heavily talked about. It was mostly, they mostly talked about the Game of Thrones writers' trilogy. Now, we have not really got any details about it, but I'm curious to see what they do. But with regards to the Knights of the Old Republic, if they do it well, that definitely will bring Star Wars back to the light, as far as I'm concerned. Because it's what a lot of people feel that we really need, though, because there's only so much you can do with Rebellion and the Empire. You need to really tell a different story. I think hardcore fans will know that the Star Wars galaxy, at least with regards to the Legends point of view, span thousands of years. For casual fans, all they know is Rebels, Empire, TIE Fighter, X-Wing, AT-AT, and so on. That's all they really know. That and the prequels too. So, if they can tell a new story set in a different time period, in a different part of the galaxy, that I think will just expand Star Wars' horizons. If I said that right. It will expand the horizon for Star Wars fans. So much that I think the creativity that we'll see will be incredible. And that's really all I've got to say about this. I know this video has kind of had me rambling along a lot. I do apologise, but it was very much an informal video, just talking about Episode 9 and Star Wars Celebration in general. But I suppose if I had to give a finishing comment, I'm cautiously optimistic about the future of Star Wars. I did a video earlier on saying what was going to be the future of Star Wars in 2019. And I think at this moment in time, I'm cautiously optimistic. That's something, if anything. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.